Hello, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Okay. First, I want to say, so people know, I don't know what's going on with YouTube and StreamYard today. Like, you guys would leave a comment, and by the time mine got through to you, it would be anywhere from 20, 30 seconds to 1 minute. And, like, the video would be playing, and Sugar can tell you this. Or no, she was watching somewhere else, and maybe from her phone. It'd be anywhere from 3 minutes to 5 minutes. So, I mean, I just thought I'd put that out there. So let me say hi. Hi, Dippy. How are you? Hey, Shug. How are you? Hey, OG. How are you? I'm awake. I'm here. I'll be here in a minute. I'll be back in a few. Yay. Okay. Now, a lot happened, but a lot didn't. Okay. Let me say this. We got, of course, another FBI agent about her pings and all that. Okay. I'm so over that. But now we're into the therapist, okay, and that plea that she made. So I made a video about this like a year ago. I can't find it, but I just thought I'd go over this disorder with you guys because I figured we'd watch a lady that has it, okay, and how she lives with it. And I want to show you also some information I found online. Let's see, from a college and from a, hold on, you guys, let me look here real quick. A college and Frontiers in Psychology. They talk about it. And people that make these pleas, because, you know, they say they have that. Now, DID used to be multiple personality disorder. So I don't know if anybody knew that. And they changed it to dissociative identity disorder. So I'm going to start out with a video of this lady that has 12 alters, as she says. Now, because I refreshed myself on this, of course, before I came online or live here, just to make sure. In my opinion, no, she doesn't have this, okay? That's my opinion, though. And I'm no doctor, but that's my opinion. But it's interesting. Okay, hold on, please. And can you please tell me if this echoes? I don't have my headphones on. Hopefully I don't have to. Here we go.
Even when I was little, when I first thought that there was, something different about me, I was listening to these shoulder angels, and I literally thought like there was like an angel and a devil like on my shoulder, like in the cartoons, and that they were just helping me like decide regular things about my life. And honestly, I thought everybody thought that way. I thought everybody had these like voices in their head that were like, oh, do this, no, do this. And finally I started to tell somebody about it, and they were like, not everybody thinks like that.
How many personalities do you have?
I think I have 12, and yeah, I think I have 12.
Welcome to SBSK. Join me as I travel around the world and interview individuals living with a condition to prove no matter how you communicate or what obstacles you face, you're always deserving of love and acceptance. So without hesitation, let's meet today's friend. To have so many questions.
I know, a lot of people do. It's okay.
With all of these personalities, are they you? Are they
all
not
me.
you?
They're all me.
Okay.
So they were all broken off as a segment of my own personality. So they're all creating one big personality.
How hard are you trying right now just to cope and have this typical conversation?
Hard. There's definitely like at least 6 of the people can't be quiet right now, and they just want to be like, oh, say this, say this. We want to be heard too.
Do you consider yourself a singular or a plural?
I talk in a plural a lot. Like when I'm in therapy, I do talk in a plural. But when I'm with other people, I try to talk singular. But if I was honest, probably like a plural, yeah, because there's definitely a lot of different voices that I consider, equally valid.
When you first explain that to somebody, what do you hope goes through their mind?
I hope just that they don't think of me as too different than themselves. Everybody has their own way that their mind works, and mine is just very interesting.
Do you see the DID as part of Lauren's personality or a separate part of her that's not really connected to her?
I think it's just a backpack full of rocks that she's carrying around, it's still Lauren, but it's just she's got all these rocks in her backpack, and it's just weighing her down, and it's just kind of hard for her to walk sometimes, and most of the time that's actually making her stronger.
It just means that I'm listening to more people in my head and more internal dialogues than a normal person would have to listen to.
I think one of the misconceptions is that people who have different personalities might be violent sometimes.
Right. Yeah. And that's definitely something that is a worry, that can be a worry. But the reason that we go and get our therapy and get the things that we do is so that doesn't happen. And we're working really hard to be people of society that would never hurt anybody.
I know who she is either way. So if she's acting like someone she's not, then I still know she's really in there. And you just gotta, like, if she's having a panic attack or something, just like scratch her back, sing to her a little bit, and she gets out of it.
Would it bother you if I was thinking, I wonder what she's thinking?
Yeah.
Does that bother you?
It doesn't really bother me. I actually like when people ask what I'm thinking. It's when people take an interest in the fact that there are voices in my head, it doesn't bother me at all. It really is. It just feels like someone's taking an interest in what my life is, and it just means something that people would even care to ask.
Do you know the 12 fragments of her personality?
She describes very different versions to me. And
he knows the one. There's one that sounds a little bit like Schmeagol, like from Lord of the Rings, and so I tell him about that one a lot. Because that one kind of is like the bad one, and he tells pulls my anxiety a little bit.
Where's that line between this voice is being a pest and this voice is a part of me?
Right. So, I still have to accept that it's a part of me. But when somebody's trying to cause havoc to the rest of the system, I've got to kind of sit that person down and give them a timeout, be like, you can't help right now because you're not being helpful.
And the system is you.
Right. Yeah. The system is me. That's what I call all of my voices a lot of the time is my system. And that's kind of what my therapist has taught me to call it, is just these are the system of voices that all make up your inner dialogue. So my inner dialogue just is fragmented into different sections, and I just hear it in different ways.
Do the different fragments have different voices?
Yes. Some of them sound very different, and some of them sound a little bit similar. A couple of them sound like my regular dialogue. But one of them sounds like Schmeagol from Lord of the Rings, and it only sounds like that, right? It's like I call that one the monster voice, because the monster voice changes. Say I watch another movie and I'm hear another voice, then that one can kind of take on that voice. And to do things like this, to decide to do an interview like this that's going to make me nervous, kind of everybody has to vote yes. So definitely in situations like this that I want to be in, that I chose to be in, everybody's there, everybody's present, nobody's mad about it. Everybody's trying to help the system explain the best that we can.
So why do you think all of these different, would it be correct to say aspects of your personality?
Mm-hmm.
Why did all these aspects of your personality agree to do this?
I think because they all want other people to understand that we're not that different, and that disorders and diagnosis can come in all different shapes and sizes, and that you should recognize that, in your everyday life, and that everybody has a backstory. My relationships would fail a lot because, friends, family, and anything, because people would be like, you're acting different. You're a different person. That was very frustrating for a very long time because I was still the same person. It was just that I was listening to these different segments of myself that are all me, but are, have different experiences and different memories.
I was never mad at her about it. I was just kind of didn't understand, you know. And when you don't understand and you're scared because someone else is going through something, it's kind of, I don't know. It's in a way it's frightening for you too, but you just have to realize that she's the one who needs help now.
That's nerve-wracking to tell somebody that you love, because they can have a different opinion, you know, and you want them to believe with you. You want them to be on your side, and he totally was, you know. He totally was like, this is what you have, and I'm glad that you figured it out. But it was nerve-wracking to tell him at first. It's nerve-wracking to admit.
When she learned that about herself, I could tell that she was anxious and stuff, and she didn't want to really come out and tell me. First off, she kind of was dealing with that herself, and I saw that. But at the same time, she came out and she told me. It really wasn't like a, oh
It's
my
hard
God,
to
it's a big
finally
deal,
admit. It's hard to finally admit that you know what's wrong with you and that you believe that diagnosis, you know, especially with mental illness, is that, you know, this is what I have, and I believe that too. And that's a lot. That's a big step. And, you know, telling him was really the like final defining step, you know, that like, okay, I've accepted it. This is what I have.
If someone wants to form a friendship with you, what do you recommend they do?
Just understand that there are different parts of me, but they're all me, and I'll be, you know, I'll be the same person that you see a lot of different times, but I have a lot of different moods.
So you've told me that you have these different fragments, different voices, could I call it that?
Mhm.
So as I'm talking to you, is there any way I should talk to you differently? Is there anything I should do different?
No, the best thing is that you're just comfortable talking to me, and that the more that you know, you're not putting your prejudices or anything like on another person, is that's when people start to get anxious, is that they start to feel like you're judging them based on maybe your other perceptions of different people with the same thing, because everybody's a little bit different, you know. And so you just have to understand that you don't know what they're going through, you know. You have no idea what's going on in their head, and you shouldn't be cautious or anything of what you're saying, because those people want to be normal, you know. Like, we want to be treated as normal.
How would you explain the psychology of why this happened to your personality?
Basically, when I was younger, probably between first and second grade, something traumatic happened to me, or something, a major point of invalidation or a traumatic event, something that I can't remember, that happened and blocked out my memory and created a new fragment. And that was the first time that I created a new fragment. And then from then on, to survive in different situations, I just created a new fragment, because that was my way of survival. Seeking help with a therapist is not the end of the world, you know. Like, a therapist can really be somebody that's reliable and your friend and there for you and your advocate. And it's really not, you know, it's not as big of a deal as you think it would be. And if a therapy is going to help you, I would go to therapy.
Are the voices ever silent?
Sometimes like they're taking a nap, kind of, it feels like. And you know, like sometimes they like take a little break, but there's never a point where they're all silent.
Thank you for watching. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel.
How about that? Hold on, please. Okay, I'm going to put the link into that for you guys. Here you go. Okay, that's the video we just watched. Okay, I'm going to look through your comments here. Okay, Shug, I was reading that comment and I almost laughed, because I thought you were being funny, because I thought you were acting like Letecia. Yeah. I was trying to put back up the headboard. Oh, really? I'm sorry that happened. I didn't laugh, though. Well, be careful. Okay, now, I talked to Jules today, and we were talking about letters, because how this stuff all happened with her, how all of a sudden everything changed with her. And we want to see if it was a pattern, because me and Jules feel, because if you guys get sick of us saying this over and over, and the reason why is we're trying to understand ourselves, and because how we seen her different at one point in time than seeing how she lied to us. Okay. So we were going to go through our letters because I found more, and we put them away and we put them in order. But this is some interesting stuff. So this Dr. Dorothy Lewis, that is for the prosecution. Now she sees things totally different, obviously, as these other doctors. Okay. I'm going to did I put that link in for you guys for that HBO special by any chance? If I didn't, just let me know. Yes, people, you may think this is boring, but I think this is really important. If you're really into finding out if this stuff is real and, what truly happens, and yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go here now. So I'm going to try to find out how to make this easier for all of us because my reading skills suck, as you people know. Good. I'm glad, sugar. So, okay, I got these two articles here. This one here is from a forensic, forensic psych, and she's from the University of Cincinnati College. Okay, she wrote this up, but I think where she got her information was right here. This really in-depth one here, and it talks about people making that plea. Okay, there's not guilty by not guilty, and it talks about the disorder. And they even say the same thing here. I'm not going to read all that, people, but I'm going to put this link in for you guys. Okay, that's interesting. I did want to point that out here in a minute. Now, there is no excuse. It says here, okay, this disorder, no excuse for criminal activity. Using multiple personalities as a basis of an insanity defense rarely is successful, which is true because I did research. And like it says here, okay, DID cases, I'm not going to read it word by word, are often in criminal justice system rather than in a mental health system. And the illness, perplexes, whatever. Individuals may commit criminal acts while in a dissociated state, okay? 21% reported that. 47% was men and 35% was women, okay? Engaging in criminal activity, including 19% of men and 7% of women, okay? Defendants occasionally use this for a basis for pleading NGRI, but there's a lot of people don't believe in this. And let's see, I think, where did I read that? Insanity defense. 1%. 1%. 2 have won from that defense. Hey, Jay, how you doing? Okay, I'm looking through this. See, this stuff can be really, really, really confusing. Okay, hold on. Okay, D&D and the NGRI. And the sanity defense is raised 1% of felony cases, and it's successful in only a fraction of those. A criminal defendant who claims that asserts that they committed the offense and asks the court to find him, it says him, not culpable because of the mental state when the offense occurred. Okay, and then it says here, NGRI due to DID will be determined by where they're being tried. The alter in control approach. See, this is funny. She's never talked about this stuff before to anybody, okay? Each alter's approach, whether each personality met the insanity. Okay, let me go here. The criteria for this. There has to be two distinct identities or personal traits or states, each with its own relatively enduring pattern of perceiving, relating to, and thinking of the environment and self. At least two of these identities or personality states must recurrently take control of the person's behavior. An ability to recall important personal info that is extensive to be explained by ordinary forgetfulness. The disturbance is not to direct psychology effects or substance or general medical condition. In children, the symptoms are not to be imaginary playmates or fantasy play. I'm going to go look at you guys' comments here. Hold on. I want to know what you guys think here that I'm going through this. Let's see. Okay, I was watching multiple print. Okay. I believe that is a true diagnosis. I don't feel this plea here is going to help her because she doesn't have the criteria for this, in my opinion. Okay. The teacher is going over. Okay. That's all I'm doing. Since we're getting into this now, since they're calling the doctors from this, I thought this would be a good thing to go over because we're not going to remember all this, but at least we're going to find out, kind of what we're going to listen to. I agree. They do, but they are so boring though. Yeah. Okay, now I'm going to go on here. Well, at least I won't remember. That's why I'm going to put the link to everything. What is going on here? I'm going to stop sharing that a moment. Wow, am I ever behind? I'm so sorry, you guys. It's YouTube and StreamYard not cooperating. They're not working together. Now I'm going to get to, see this here? These are the people that have used this plea as a basis for a not guilty. Okay? In NGRI. So how many cases is this here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 cases. Let's see if they won. I don't know if they won or not. Did you see that, guys? That's not many, is it? And they were for R, murmur, drunk driving, robbery, murmur, and SA. See, that's going to be really tough for them to, So then it goes in more details of those cases. That's pretty much what all this is. They go into the cases about that. Okay, so, okay, they do tell you why. Like in the State versus Lockhart, DID in support of his insanity defense. West Virginia court held the diagnosis of DID and therefore did not meet the standards of evidence. Okay, tools for diagnosing, clinical interview for the disorder, interview schedule, experience skill, and childhood trauma. And they got to have 5 dissociative symptoms. Amnesia, what is this? Depersonalize, derealize, identity confusion, identity alteration. See, you guys, this is so confusing. Bottom line, a defense of NGRI due to the DID rarely has been successful. Courts generally have found that although an individual may have these personalities that control his or her behavior, the condition does not preclude criminal responsibility. So I will for sure put this link in for you guys if you want to check it out yourself. Now, this is what I want to get to. Because this is the only part that I really get and understand is this letter that this poor, see how organized they are here? Okay. See this letter here? And they said, what do they say here? Hold on. Okay. The letter sent to the psychiatrist involved in the case of Chris Sizemore, of the patient Sizemore. The sudden change in the handwriting can be observed in the last paragraph of the letter. You see that? Let me get this out of the way. Let me blow this up for you guys. Oh, I hate it when this stuff happens. I mean, we can't read the writing, but the last paragraph right here changes. It's going to be hard for these people on the jury to figure this out. I mean, they're using that for her defense. I'm not going to read all this, just so you people know. See this? But I will put all this in the links below for you guys if you want to read that. The first witness was great but confusing. Okay. Who said that earlier? In 2018, wouldn't Al seen this? There's different personalities coming through. I was talking about the man this morning with the phone data. Okay, give me a minute, guys. I am going to look for a video of somebody that had it and won in court. Let me see here. Oh, shoot. I didn't save it. Okay, here, we're going to watch this here and see what happens. The hillside strangler had multiple personality. I'm sorry, you guys. Everywhere you go, they want you to pay for something. And I'm not paying for this crap. So what I'm trying to find here are people that have that have gone and killed. God, I thought I saved it. Okay, we're going to listen to this lady. Hold on. I'm so sorry. I thought I had it.
Dr. Romney, welcome back to Med Circle. Wonderful to have you here.
Thank you so much. It's so good to be back.
Let's talk about dissociation. I want to start with the definition and then go right into your experience working with clients who've experienced dissociation.
Yeah. So dissociation is sort of a splitting off of the self, right? So it's basically a person who's dissociated. It's as though a part of their self almost gets cleaved off, and it becomes separated from the sort of the overall sense of self. If you think of our self as this big holistic thing, dissociation would be as though a piece of that was taken away. Typically, when we see dissociation, in almost all cases I've ever seen, it's a trauma response. It's often considered to be a protective trauma response, right? As though to maintain a regular recollection of the memory or that terrible thing that happened would just be too destabilizing. And it's in part could be sort of an intrapsychic protective mechanism. You have this dissociated part of the self. Now, the person who experiences dissociation may experience a wide variety of phenomenon. They may they may literally experience themselves as different people, like as different entities. They may sort of feel like they're looking in at their life from the outside in. They may feel separated from the world in general, as though the only way I can describe it is imagine looking at the world almost through a gauze, or though as you're walking through it in slow motion. So you feel detached. detached. And I think that detachment is a key element of any kind of dissociation. It has multiple manifestations, but by and large, it is a trauma response.
Is that what you see in your private practice?
Yeah, I mean, you have to remember in most outpatient practices, you're not going to see a ton of dissociation. Also, remember again, I'm a big believer in the continuum. Dissociation is a term that exists on a continuum. At the lowest levels of dissociation, we're not talking about a person who has 27 personalities. We're talking about someone who is almost so detached, as though they're almost in denial of parts of themselves. And so that milder level of dissociation is more normative than you think. And that's more of what we might see in an outpatient practice. Now, if you go to the most severe levels of dissociation, that's where you'd see dissociative identity disorder. For example, a person having multiple personalities or so dissociated from themselves that they're not even almost aware of what their body, if you will, is doing and what their that part of them is doing. It's like they get separated in different ways. So there's a continuum of dissociation. It's almost like the sort of milder dissociation that allows some people to get through the day, and the extreme dissociation that really can be quite destabilizing. Because I've worked with clients with trauma histories, I've seen certainly people on the milder end of the dissociative spectrum. We see dissociation as part of post-traumatic stress, complex post-trauma, borderline personality. All of those will carry sort of a pretty heavy dissociative element to it. I have also worked with clients who had histories of, DID. So at the most extreme, I've seen that too. Sort of not my area of specialization. So those are folks where you'd work in tandem with a really trained trauma therapist, because that's a very, very specialized area of focus.
We'll talk a little bit more about dissociative identity disorder here in a bit. Would someone experience dissociation during or before or after a panic attack?
That's an interesting question, Kyle. I think the panic attacks, and we always think of panic attacks two ways, right? There's the panic attacks almost everybody's had once, right? Panic attacks that can happen when you don't have enough sleep, when you wake up disoriented in a new place, when you're experiencing a lot of stress and experiencing tremendous stress or any of those things. We've all had panic attacks under those conditions, right? And it happens once, and a person's like, I got to get my life in order. I'm going to get more sleep or whatever, and then they don't have any more panic attacks. In panic disorder, a person has panic attacks quite regularly, multiple panic attacks a week. They're spontaneous. You have no idea what will cause them. The person really feels on edge, not knowing when the next will happen. Now, in those cases, some folks will report that they can feel a little bit of what we might call a prodrome, like a lead up to that panic attack. And it's quite conceivable that even in the lead up, there's some sense of like something's about to happen. Now, during the panic attack, I have definitely talked with many clients who say, I felt like I was out of my body. Like I was almost watching myself have this like heart attack experience. And I didn't understand what was happening, but I really thought I was dying, but I wasn't sure sort of it was me. And then obviously when a person comes out of a panic attack, what we see is a lot of exhaustion. And then we almost see more of an integration of self. And like I said, the person's often quite exhausted. What's really interesting is when a person does have a period of dissociation, even separate from a panic attack. I've observed this, and again, this is anecdotal in my own clients, when there's for example, a tremendous stress comes up, the person has a dissociative moment, even in a session, they will become quite exhausted. As though it's almost exhausting to cleave off part of yourself or switch between identities and come back. So it's fatiguing for the individual. But I think in panic attacks, it's not unusual for some people to feel like the panic attack itself was almost out of body, which would imply dissociation.
Mm-hmm. We're going to go through the types now. There are many, but this first one is dissociative amnesia. Can you explain what this is?
So dissociative amnesia is when a person feels as though they simply cannot remember parts of, like they've had a dissociative experience, a trauma, and then they simply can't remember elements of themselves. They just can't remember it, like where they were born, about themselves, like their history, anything, like who, what's your name? Where are you from? Don't know. I don't remember, or they may not remember a specific part of their history.
If somebody was assaulted and they dissociated, and then somebody was asking them what happened, they may not have memory of the assault, but they might not even know their own name at this point.
Yeah, they might even say, I don't remember anything that happened. And they'll say, you were brought to this hospital with bruises, and they'll say absolutely nothing. And so they may not have memory for that, anything close to that. They won't remember where they were that day, the day before. And this, Kyle, is a really important thing to note, because something that often comes up, for example, in criminal proceedings, is the dubiousness of a crime victim. Well, what do you mean you can't remember? This is a terrible thing. How could you not remember this? This comes up a lot with sexual assault survivors. Dissociative amnesia lets us know that at that period of time, is for some people, and many people have said this, I felt like I was watching myself be attacked. I was floating above myself. And then some people will have excruciating memories of the situation, but many will say, I don't remember anything. And sadly, this is where policy and mental health knowledge should be driving policy, is that, well, if you don't remember anything, and defense attorneys will go at this all the time, well, then I guess it didn't really happen and you're making this up, which a jury's going to buy if they don't understand the landscape of trauma. So it's that loss of memory, that kind of, that split off part of the self that doesn't remember. So if you want to call the main personality, the person, the host, this is almost a part of the person that splits off, and they don't remember really significant elements of themselves, where they grew up. Even sometimes it depends on the story.
Correct me if I'm wrong here. That does not mean, though, that they don't experience the effects of the trauma just because you don't remember it.
In fact, they are experiencing the effects of the trauma, the dissociation.
Yeah, by not remember.
Right.
Hello.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
the dissociation is the effect. You know, it's funny, Kyle. I remember in a seminar I was doing, a woman had talked about how, I know I'm supposed to journal and connect, sort of past to present. She said, I simply have no recollection of my past. And she had a very, very traumatic childhood, very traumatic, massive losses, abuse, inconsistency, chaos. And so it's as though somebody kind of hijacked part of her history. She's like, I just don't have it. In cases like that, trauma therapies can often be a place where people are sort of, taken to that place where they can see if they can, accurately sort of start piecing it together. But for some people, again, that area around the trauma gets really carved out. And then we see this experience of dissociative amnesia. And like I said, massive policy impacts on this one, because there are big public cases where people are like, well, I guess it didn't happen if you can't remember it. And I'm thinking, like, I guess most normal people have not taken a trauma 101 course, because to me, that's what I would expect.
All right, let's move to our second type. This is a dissociative fugue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Am I pronouncing that right?
Yeah.
What is this?
A fugue is actually a dance. It's and a piece of music that goes with said dance, right? So that's where that word comes from. In a dissociative fugue, which can actually be quite dangerous, a person wanders away. They just go, and people find them sometimes hundreds of miles from home. The person who experienced a dissociative fugue will actually not have a clear recollection of how they ended up in that other place. When they get to that other place, they can often look quite confused, not be able to give clear answers to who they are. Sometimes someone will pull their ID and say, okay, let me call someone, but they simply will not have a recollection of how they got there. So it's you can see how that's dangerous, almost like we might see in a older patient with dementia who might wander, right? And that can be dangerous, especially depending on weather, safety, because they are sort of kind of wandering. And I mean, they have their abilities. They might literally get in a car or get on a bus or get on a train. So they're going through steps, right? But it's almost like it's robotic or an autopilot kind of a thing. Then they end up someplace, and they're confused. And somebody often will find out that someone's in a dissociative fugue state when somebody's asking them questions and they're recognizing this person's confused. They might think they're actually on drugs. They're not on drugs. They may call someone, and then they will get them back to that, get them back to safety.
Is this a response to recent trauma, or is this something the body does occasionally after old trauma or years of trauma?
Well, I would say that it's not likely to happen after a singular traumatic event, though anything's possible. It could be something we see in response to complex trauma. It's also something we could see in response to a triggering event, right? So a person's experienced a trauma. Now they're in a situation that evokes an original trauma. And under that stress, a dissociative fugue could happen. It's an extreme response. It's extraordinarily rare, is not normative or even at all, it's rare. I have to tell you, in all my years of practice, I have never, ever personally consulted on a case where there's a dissociative fugue. I've read some, like literally, I remember one in particular. Woman was found out in one of the desert cities, and again, sort of a little disheveled, but more than anything, confused. And she'd had a history of trauma, and sort of somehow managed to drive her car out, and she stopped to get gas.
Well, speaking of rare ones, I know this next one is pretty rare, dissociative identity disorder. And in fact, on YouTube, I see so many people. Now, look, I don't know if it's real or not, but I can't imagine that something this rare has so many people on camera sharing it. It makes me a little, what are your thoughts on DID?
So DID is an incredibly rare disorder. It stands for dissociative identity disorder. And and it's sort of like the kind of to me, what I consider sort of the kind of keystone diagnosis within that dissociative sort of chapter within a diagnostic manual. It is very rare, and it's interesting. I was thinking, percentage-wise, if as many people in the real world had DID as we see in the movies, everyone would be having DID practices, right?
Yeah, right.
I've seen very, very few cases of it, and we always have to entertain competing diagnoses, including personality disorders like borderline personality. In borderline personality, you can see some sort of identity shape-shifting and lability, and it's not quite at the level of a dissociative identity. It's a dissociative experience, and sometimes it's sort of a trauma response. We could see some dissociative patterns in complex post-traumatic stress. It's not unusual to see that there. Certainly, we could see dissociative sort of experiences after post-traumatic stress. So when we think of DID, we're looking, there's specific things we're looking for, like these identifiable, what are called alters. Alters are these various personalities a person possesses. And the alters are often quite distinct, and people with DID they'll have names, ages, even more than that, ethnicities, identities, you name it. And then the person will find that different stresses may lead them to, different alters get pulled out, and they will notice that under stress. And that's usually what you'll see with people with DID. They have the host identity, right? That's them.
Okay, I want to stop that there for a second. Okay, that was interesting that she said that, and that was brought up in court, that there'll be different stressors that pulls out these alters. I have a letter, as a matter of fact, that she's saying she's 3 different people within this one letter. So I'm saying, in that time frame that she wrote that letter, if she's, no way. There's no way that she was 3 different people within that letter. Do you guys know what I'm saying? But there is one case I'm going to show right after this, a case that did win with that plea here in a minute.
Them, and their I don't want to say that's them. That's just sort of a primary identity that most people are accustomed to encountering with them. However, if stress comes up, then you'll see that sort of transition into an alter. People with DID will say, listen, I had this conversation with someone, but clearly it was my alter having this conversation. And so the whole thing deteriorated and the conversation became really strange. And so it's very rare. That's the bottom line. And unless it's been formally diagnosed, not only by a licensed mental health practitioner, but one with an expertise in trauma, I would need to see that to be sure. And I couldn't even tout myself as such. I am a mental health practitioner, but the level of training and trauma one would need to be able to successfully work with somebody who did not only diagnose them with DID, but then successfully work with them. Usually in cases of DID, we see some pretty significant trauma histories. So what you're likely seeing is sort of a complex post-trauma presentation with this more significant kind of manifestation of DID. So it's complicated. And I think that obviously it's not a ubiquitous kind of a pattern. And like I said, I think it's sort of it's intriguing, but the way cinema and story present it makes it seem so much more not only common, but also sort of intentional, as though a person feels in charge of all of this, right? Like they're sort of pulling the strings. I'm going to go be my 7-year-old identity. I'm going to go be, it's something happening to the person. And so,
Yeah.
and it's distressing. It can actually be quite distressing for the person experiencing it.
Very interesting topic. This final one is depersonalization disorder.
So in depersonalization disorder, a person feels as though they're watching their life from the outside, right? So the best example I can say is they're literally sort of feel like they're floating out there watching what's happening to them. They feel as though they're on some sort of like robotic-y, autopilot-y way of going through the world. They feel as though they might be watching life slow down with kind of almost like a gauze or a filter over their face. Depersonalization it's an interesting manifestation because we're going to see it in trauma survivors, as though, especially where I've heard it and I've witnessed it, is people saying they felt depersonalized when they've had sex. So they have a history of sexual abuse survivorship, either from childhood or adulthood, or non-consensual sex, physically, sexually assaulted, whatever it may be. And they've had these traumatic sexual experiences. Then when they do enter even into a consensual adult sexual relationship, they find themselves depersonalized, like almost leaving their body at those times, making sex a really fraught space for them. So that's where I've heard clients talk about depersonalization. But Kyle, some people actually use drugs to feel depersonalized. Like they'll actually use drugs so they can sort of feel like they're kind of in this out and othered experience watching themselves. So there's people who find this to be kind of exploratory. But when we're talking about it from a mental health perspective, once again, it's going to load onto trauma, and the person's going to feel as though they're watching themselves. And linked to that issue of panic you brought up, that during a panic attack, some people may feel quite depersonalized. And I think in a person with more severe panic disorder, we may see this sort of depersonalization experience.
So the depersonalization disorder are periods of feeling dissociated, not a chronic state of feeling that way.
No.
And do they have to occur at any frequency in order to get the disorder diagnosis?
I think that what we look for is significant episodes of it that are sort of really substantiated, that the person's able to describe, that it sort of links to something historic, though you don't have to have the trauma origin to have these diagnoses. I mean, it's just simply you're diagnosing it episodically. I have to tell you off the top of my head, I don't know the period of time or the number of episodes that would be required to meet this diagnosis, though.
Okay. Well, we have a fabulous trauma library that Med Circle members can access. We'll link to that somewhere.
Okay, you guys, I will put the link into that because if you're into that type of stuff, learning about mental health stuff, this is a good channel to come to. And I really like that doctor. She explained all this very, very good. Hey, G, how's it going? Okay, now, has anybody ever heard of Billy Milligan? Uh-oh, what happened? Found dead in her apartment with multiple stab wounds. Oh boy. Okay. Yeah, very interesting. Now I'm going to play this. Okay. There's a Netflix special on this guy, this Billy Milligan or Mulligan, or no, it's Milligan. So I will play this clip here in a minute. So this one's on Netflix. And what I'll do, I'll put the link in. Okay, this is a true story of Billy, the first ever defendant found not guilty. Okay, so hold on. Netflix, and I seen it. So if you guys got Netflix, go check it out. Oh my God, what's going on here? Are we frozen? So weird. So here's the link to that. And if you got Netflix, watch that. And the HBO special too with Dr. Dorothy Lewis, I'll put that in too. And here's that HBO one. So yeah, I figure on you guys' own time, you can check all that out. And let me get you these links here to these articles. Hold on. Shoot. How can I do this? Okay, and here's a link to that website that goes into details. I mean, we're no doctors, we're no therapists. A lot of this stuff is really hard to understand. But there's some good information there if you want to look into it. Defense at this point, I think they're just making sure her trial is fair. I think it's been fair. What do you guys think? Some of the stuff in the courtroom, I think she's doing it on purpose. Because you would think she'd be different. Okay, how can I explain this? I know what I'm trying to say, but I don't know how to express the words outright. Why I don't believe it. That was funny. Our own time? I haven't watched. I don't watch TV either. Just when I go to bed. But I watch these specials if I want to learn something. You know what I mean? I think you're right. She was different today. She had her hair different. I think they told her to do that because they knew a doctor was coming on the stand. And that's what I think. See, now, Lori Vallow case, that is totally different. Because she believed things that weren't there. She believed that Chad was some kind of prophet. No, that case, if anything, that would be the case. Who's been, yep, and the one that seemed to care about her. Who, Letecia? Oh, sorry. I do it to fall asleep too. Yeah. Mind control. What is it? Isn't that crazy? Like 1% wins with that plea? I could have got the numbers wrong. I don't think I did. I could have. Because the most recent article I showed you guys was from 2022. Well, yeah, she's got, some family members I'm sure she talks to. And then she's got her best friend, Amy, that, is all over social media, sticking up for her. Yeah, I mean, I would have to learn more about this too. What's TV? What's a TV? I watch teenagers fall asleep. Like I said, stupid crap. I watch a lot of documentaries and true crime. Pretty much that's all I watch. So anyways, with that said, I'm going to get going. I have a ungodly busy day tomorrow. But yeah, if you guys want to check all that out on your own time, maybe kind of learn about it before we get to watch it, on how it's going to unfold. But all this was just my opinion. It's not fact, nothing like that. And thank you everybody for checking this live out. And if you watch a replay. Okay, everybody. Bye.